Hey Geek, so today I want to talk about a topic that I think a lot of us retro gamers probably think about and can relate with. And this question is game emulation in danger? Now, I think for a lot of us out there, including myself, I probably had this question in my mind ever since I discovered game emulation. But now with modern gaming, advances in technologies, tracking, and just the overall setup of how we play games, I think it's becoming more and more of a real issue. And well, that's what I really want to talk about. I want to share some of my thoughts, and I would like to know what you think about this as well. So let's start off with the most popular emulators out there. At least for me, MAME is really the one that popularized this whole area of emulation. And I know there's been other software-based emulation prior to that, but at least for me, when it comes to retro gaming, MAME is the godfather of them all. And nowadays, there's countless emulators out there. I use RetroArch and all the different emulators that it could use for its front end. And we obviously have packages like CoinOpsX, One Sauce. There's just a myriad of emulators out there. But the main issue that I've been seeing over the years is, well, we all know that the emulators are one thing that so far have been protected. And it was mainly years and years ago when this company called Bleem got into a court case with Sony where Sony was trying to block and stop this. But because of that landmark case, we were able to get emulators since then. And so far it has been protected. But all of us know the whole gray area, and in some cases, definitely not a place that you want to be, and that has to do with ROMs. Now, without the ROMs, you can't play your games. The emulators are basically useless. And all of these ROMs, at least for the most of them, they are reverse engineered. And so there's definitely this whole gray area, there's legalities and intellectual property here, and definitely people have argued over this for a long time. But here's my general thoughts on this. You know, if you are a gamer, you probably have actual game systems or have had them in the past. And so for me, I've been very fortunate enough to grow up with video games. So I still have some physical game hardware, as you can see here. And I do have some games here as well. And so that's mainly because I grew up playing video games. And so this was a lot more accessible to me, and thankfully I did keep some of these game systems, and my brothers are the ones who really preserved these for me. And so that is the one case where you quote unquote legally can make copies, I guess, in certain countries if you have the original. But at the same time, this is a very touchy subject. But I really feel with emulation, it does something that's super, super important, because as we all know, with physical hardware, they're eventually going to break down and you simply can't replace or fix them. And getting these physical copies of games or game hardware, it's really difficult, and a lot of times it's impossible. And so the whole idea of game emulation is not only to relive your memories and play games that you never played before, but this whole game preservation thing, I think, is really important. And a lot of these big game companies, you know, Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, they use emulation as well to play some of their older games. And so this is something that I think is really, really important to gaming history, not only for the past, but also the present and the future as well. So that's my overall thoughts on emulation in general. But I kind of feel like nowadays, especially with companies like Nintendo and probably many other companies, I do understand that they do want to protect their intellectual property. But the way in which they're going about it, I think it's really counterproductive, because a lot of us gamers out there, we're still buying games, and this is free marketing for them. But more and more of these game companies want to really protect their games even more and basically make as much profit from these games for as long as possible, even ones which honestly aren't making them any money nowadays. And so that is something that I understand, but at the same time, it's just backwards to me. And this is where I feel the whole world of modern gaming is becoming even more challenging, I think, for people who want to preserve and keep their games. And so for a lot of us, we don't really have access to these type of things anymore. Like if you're just starting out and you're collecting physical hardware, you know, and physical games, you know, it's really, really difficult to find these. And if you do find them, you know, for some games, it could be really, really expensive. And once again, these do break down, okay? And so for somebody who's just starting out who doesn't already have a collection, it is really, really difficult. And now with modern gaming, where these companies, you know, they have all their games digitally, then they have it on their own platforms. You know, most people download from Valve, but each one of these big game companies, you know, they have their own software stores. And even though they do have retro game collections, here's the problem. Whenever these stores or these software centers shut down, what happens to your games? Well, they're gone. You know, you don't have access to them anymore. Even if you have it locally, in some cases, it won't work unless it like talks to these gaming servers, you know. And there's been many gaming platform services out there, and at the time of this video, the most recent one was Google Stadia was shut down. And so what happens when you lose services like that? You know, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that even Valve might shut down in the future. And we've seen these game companies make games unavailable where they used to be available. And so that is my biggest concern nowadays, when these companies have so much control over these games, you don't physically own them. And even if you do physically own them, more often than not, you have to download software, patches, and also they definitely do some type of security checks to control whether or not you can play some of these games. So that is my biggest worry for you who are a gamer, you know, whether it's retro gaming, modern gaming, future gaming. It doesn't look really bright for a lot of us out there because we don't really own these games anymore. Even if you have it physically, you're basically just renting these out. And with these game consoles nowadays, since they're all going to be connected to the internet some way in terms of security, software downloads, and so forth, they could definitely shut down your entire game system, you know. And with most modern gaming nowadays, they don't release full games. They basically release games like in a beta mode, you know, where they're still making fixes, and then you download patches later. And so all of those things makes me really worried about the state of game emulation. And obviously these gaming companies, I get it that they want to protect their properties, but at the same time, they are really, I feel, destroying games as well, because they have so much control over this. And the things that they're doing, like Nintendo, it just really sucks for people who love their games, who want to share everything. And at the same time, for all of us out there who've been gamers for a long time, I really feel in a lot of ways it's kind of like a disservice to all the people who've been supporting, loving your games, you know. And yeah, I really do feel that this is a danger time for game emulation. I don't know where it's going to go in the future, but with everything that's going on, the amount of control these game companies have, and also them shutting down these game emulation and especially ROM sites, well, it's going to make the whole area of game emulation even more difficult. So those are just some of my thoughts on game emulation, modern gaming in general. I really wish I had more like of an optimistic view on things, but with everything that's going on, been going on, and where it's heading in the future, there might be an age where you might not have access to games after a certain point, even through emulation. So if you actually had any thoughts of your own on this entire subject, be sure to leave in the comments area below. And if you did want to see more of my retro gaming videos, I do have an entire playlist. I'll leave that in the description area as well. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you on another episode. For serious YouTubers, check out TubeBuddy, the premier tool news at geekoutdoors.com. Get more done today by checking out the affiliate link in the description area below.